through these difficult times. And I also want to just invite you that if you don't have a church and you're looking for a church, we welcome you here. And if you just want to be part of a church that wants to follow Jesus, that wants to inspire people and make a difference, we're here for you to serve you. I know life is tough and it's difficult and you want to get it right. Here at El Camino, we just really want to help. So come and connect with us. Today, I want to start this fourth part of our series by sharing with you that, I don't know if it happens to you, but I'm a little ashamed to share this with you, but it almost most of the time that I go online, I go to Instagram, Facebook, whatever the platform I go to, it's hard not to feel bad and compare yourself when you see that other people, their picture looks so nice, their stuff looks so nice, their clothes look so new, their car looks better, the vacation they take compared to the one sometimes I take, I feel like, where did they find these places? How did they get there? Why their stuff looks so good and mine looks like... All right. So all of us sometimes we get so uncomfortable seeing how other people's stuff looks so good online that sometimes we even think about canceling our account. And you know what? My life is not as good as their life. I don't know what's wrong with me. But that happens when we start falling into the comparison trap. We start comparing ourselves with others because that emotion it's fighting to take control of how we feel. Or how we are. Because as we've been sharing, our heart sometimes is competing to control our lives through some emotions. And those emotions and they're in the competition to get control of our heart. And specifically, they want to control our mouth, what we say. And what we do. And our mouths gets us in trouble many times. Because we let those emotions be the one on control. But Jesus said it best, and I've shared this with you in the past week. Jesus said it best. He said this, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then goes out of the body? I called that a couple of weeks ago, digestion 101. And Jesus continues and says the next thing. The next thing he says in verse 18, he says, but the things that come out of the person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. Basically, whatever comes out of you gets you in trouble with God and others. And whoever is controlling your mouth, that you know who's controlling your mouth, is that troublemaker of yours. Jesus said it here. Whatever comes out of the mouth comes from the heart. That's why sometimes, and he says it in the next verse. And then he says, for out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, thief, false testimony, and slander. Basically, our words and our deeds, our actions and our word reflects the conditions of our heart. That's why sometimes you find yourself saying, oh, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to do that. I'm not sure where that came from. But if you watch the last couple of weeks, we all know now where those things are coming from. We're sure now that they're coming from our heart. And we're not supposed to allow those destructive emotions that are lurking within us to seize control of our lives, to take control of. Instead, we should go after these things, after these emotions. So let's deal with them. Last week, we spoke about anger. Today, I want to talk to you about envy. Last week we spoke about anger and how anger takes the best of us sometimes and how we actually act in anger. And it went so deep that I said that Jesus, instead of going after the action, Jesus said, I'm going to go after what creates the action, which was anger. But this week I'm going to talk to you about envy. And to start talking this conversation with you, I want to go to what Solomon said, one of the kings of Israel, one of the wisest men on earth, according to the history and the scriptures themselves. Solomon wasn't holding back when he wrote this. He wrote this. He said, envy rots the bones. Envy rots the bone. You want your bone to be rotten? Let envy take control of your heart. It leaves us, you know what envy rots our bones? Because it leaves us competing with people that don't even know there's a competition. That's sometimes when envy is controlling our actions, our heart, is that we are competing with others that they don't even know we're competing with them. They don't even know. And it makes us arrogant because we're winning, or when we're winning, we think we are a little bit too much, or it leaves us feeling discouraged because we're losing, or when we think we're losing. So let's do something. So let's knock it off. Let's destroy. Let's get rid of envy. Do it. Simple. Period. I'm finished with the message. To what you might be saying, yeah, if it was only that easy to get rid of envy. And I'm telling you, you're right. It's not that easy. This emotion of envy is not going away. But because it's not going away, that doesn't mean that we're not supposed to control it. Because it's still going to stay around, that doesn't mean it needs to control you. It needs to drive us or steal our joy. Because you know what? Envy is not a problem to solve. It's a tension to manage. Basically, you're not going to destroy envy. You're not going to stop from feeling a little bit weird when you see that somebody else has something better than you. It's going to come to you. The feeling is going to come. The emotion is going to show. It's not for you to just stop it and not basically and cure it for once and for all. No, it's for you to manage the tension and not let it steal your joy, not let it steal your peace. Solomon provides us with a place to go mentally when we start drifting towards envy and discontentment, when we start drifting to something that takes away our joy. Solomon gives us a place where we can emotionally and mentally go to. And he starts talking and brings this amazing comparison so we can understand and we can see what is it to feel envious when you see somebody having something that you don't have. So he gives us a word that gives us a picture so for us to regain balance when we're losing it, because that's what happened. It's something important to remember is this. These emotions, guilt, anger, fear, lust, and envy, they throw us off balance. Every time you let the emotions control you, things get out of control. So Solomon said this amazing scripture for us to see what happens when we let envy take the best of us. And he said this. He said, I saw all toil and achievement spring from one person's envy of another one. I saw that all toil and achievement spring from one person's envy of another one. And he says, he said, I saw that all toil and all achievement springs from one person's envy of another one. But he just doesn't leave it there. He says something for us to understand that this right here is not what we should be aiming for, what we should be doing. And it's funny to think that 3,000 years ago, when this was written, the same thing was going on back then. People were letting envy take the best of themselves. They were competing with one another. He's saying that people were achieving stuff because somebody else achieved it. They were working hard. They were killing themselves at work, working overtime. Does it sound similar? Working overtime because you want to buy that new phone, that new car, that better house because your neighbor have it. So 3,000 years ago, people were fighting with the same thing. They were competing with each other. And it's funny to see this. They were determined where they were based. They were determined where they were based when somebody else was. This is too meaningless, he says. Then he gives us a powerful word to picture what this means. It's one that we should etch into our soul. We should put it inside of our heart. And he said, to live like this, to toil and to be envying, to let envy control ourselves, it's like chasing after the wind, he said. It's like when you're chasing the wind. It's funny and then he goes and says, it's endless. It's endless. It's like, it's an endless thing because tomorrow somebody else is going to have something better. The point that he was making is that it's endless to aim at envy because there's no finish line. There's no peace because there's always going to be an He is newer. Hers is nicer. Theirs is bigger. Faster or smarter. There's always going to be somebody that has a little bit more than you. So every time you let envy take the best of you, dissatisfaction, it's guaranteed. It's a distraction guarantee. Envy steals the joy from our accomplishment because someone else accomplished more. When you catch yourself looking and drifting into someone else's lane, say to yourself, envy, you don't have control over me. Because that is chasing the wind, as Solomon says. And you know what, envy? I don't chase the wind. I don't chase the wind. I'm not going to let you control my emotions. I'm not going to let you control my actions. Every time you find yourself doing something, buying something because somebody else has it, check your heart. Because it might be the envy is somewhere around there lurking in the shadows, trying to control your actions. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. And tell envy, I'm not going to waste my life chasing the wind. On the other hand, this isn't an invitation to passivity. Solomon is not telling you, okay, don't try to achieve nothing. Don't try to do anything because that's not what he's saying. He's saying that a lot of the people, at the end he saw that many people do things because of the envy, but he's not telling us to not do anything because Solomon in his lifetime reached more than anyone in his own lifetime. He was a guy of achievement. He was one of the richest men on earth. He had more things than anybody around his time. But he said something that is I want to share with you. He said this: fools fold their hands and ruins themselves. So here we see that he's not trying to tell us not to achieve anything. He's just trying to give. Being non-productive is not the answer. He brings an extremes together here to give us an example and this, and he goes and share with us. He said this: better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. So what he's trying to say, tranquility or peace, is simple satisfaction or contentment. Basically, the goal here is to have peace. But we assume sometimes that to have more is better. But chasing more sometimes leaves us wanting more and more and more. His point, what he's trying to make the point is, less is more when it leads into contentment. Less is more if I still can keep my peace. If I'm going to lose my peace by having more, I'd rather stay with little and still keep my peace. If you've been in trouble and if you have lost your peace over something, you know that sometimes more is not better. Sometimes less is more when it leads to contentment. The result is to gain peace. The result, the goal here is actually to be in peace. And one thing that happens to me, and this is something that I try every day, try to work on it, is that I find in my life that sometimes I'm going through so much situations that steal my joy, that steal my peace, that when I'm trying to enjoy the moment with my family, with my wife, with my kids, when I'm trying to kiss my little girls, right, usually on those moments of joy and peace, when something is not okay out there, when I need to get stuff, when something is worrying me, it usually comes to mind in the best moments of my life. So what I tell myself when I'm outside, I'm going to fix this problem now. I'm going to get this now because I'm not going to let this take away my joy when I'm enjoying it with my family. I don't want that thought to come and steal my joy when I'm in with my family. And this is what Solomon is saying. It's not about having more. It's really about having peace. If you need to do the trade peace over anything else. Over anything, I choose peace. So this is what he's trying to say, that better is a handful with tranquility than grasping and striving and pretending and editing and cropping and retaking, trying to break somebody else's eyes, try to impress other people. And he goes on and said to the next verse, again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. In other words, the man had nobody to leave his states with. He had nobody to leave everything that he worked for, that he killed himself for. Because in that time, women would not inherit property in that culture. So this guy has no descendant, had no brother. He was just killing himself, maybe trying to impress somebody else. And he goes and continues. Solomon says, there's no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. Yet his eyes. This is crazy. This is so good. Because sometimes our eyes are so focused on somebody else and something else that we forget to look with our own eyes what we already have. And that takes away our peace. And he finally, Solomon, stopped and asked the question that some of us has never stopped to ask. And the guy, Solomon says the story, and he stopped and asked, for whom am I toiling? From whom am I working so hard? And this is something maybe you should ask. Why am I doing this? What am I trying to prove? And to whom am I trying to prove it to? Some of you are competing with your father, your mother, your sister, or your brother. Or you're competing for that approval. You're competing for their approval. You want them to accept you the way because you have stuff. And you know, they don't even know it, but you're just competing. You're trying to prove that you're better, that you have, that you can do it. And I ask you, why are you doing so? For whom are you toiling? And he goes and says, this part, he said, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? Why are you working so hard and you're not even enjoying what you're working for? Could it be that you're doing it for somebody else and you're letting envy control your emotions and your heart? He couldn't stop and enjoy what he had, and he didn't know why. This is, according to Solomon, he couldn't stop and enjoy what he had, and he didn't know why. Perhaps you can't either, and you don't know why. And he continues and says, this too is meaningless, a miserable business, he called it. Why miserable? Why miserable? You will never be who you were born to be as long as you're looking over your shoulder at everybody else. It's miserable for you to be paying attention to what everybody else has and not paying attention to what you have. This is a miserable business. This is a miserable thing to do, to start living your life through somebody else's lenses, to start living your life through somebody else's eyes. It's a miserable business. And if you're a Christian, this is even more serious. You will never experience God's purpose for your life if you're still distracted by seeing God's purpose for somebody else. You cannot let the comparison game take the best of you. You know why? Because you got to tell envy that envy cannot control you. And this is the other part of the verse that I shared with you from Solomon in the beginning. This is the other part. He said, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. A heart at peace gives. You want to have life? Keep the peace. You want to have life, aim for the peace. But every time you let envy take control, then your bones are getting rotten. Then your life starts leaking and destroying itself slowly in your hands. You cannot compare yourself into peace. You cannot compare yourself or compete yourself your way into peace. You cannot have peace while comparing. You cannot have peace while competing. You cannot have peace while focusing on somebody else's grass. And you know what? The grass is not greener on the other side. Pay attention to your table. Pay attention to your situation, because if you keep looking at somebody else's problem, your problem is going to become bigger. Pay attention to your house. Stay focused on what you have, because you cannot compare or compete your way into peace. You can't win chasing the wind. God has given you a race to run. Get in your lane, stay there, thrive there, do stuff there, win there, change somebody's world from where you are. Stop trying to be somebody. Look to others for inspiration, not for imitation. Look to other people for inspiration, for imitation, not to try to be like them. Celebrate when you cannot participate. Celebrate their wins. Oh, somebody bought a new car? Glory to God. Somebody bought a new house? God bless them. Be happy where you are. Be happy with the little, and God will put you in the and more. Be happy where you are, because you know why? It's so sad to see some people that when somebody else is getting something good, they feel bad about the success of others. And you cannot be happy with what you have if you too focus on what somebody else has. Jordan Peterson said it this way. He said, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to where someone else is today. Basically, compare yourself to who you were yesterday instead of comparing yourself to where someone else is today. In other words, count your blessings. Count your blessings. Your blessings. See your kids, your house, your stuff, your clothes. See your account. See the beauty in what you have. Instead, count your blessings, not your neighbors. Count your blessings, not your neighbors. Life is better when you count your blessings, not theirs. Don't miss what life has for you. Don't miss what God has for you. You will never experience life to the full until you decide to fully embrace the life in front of you. You will never be happy until you decide to embrace what you have. You will never be happy until you look at your kids in their eyes and tell them, I love you just the way you are. You will never be happy until you're able to look at your wife in her eyes and say, I love you how you are. I don't care if there's a million women out there, you're my wife. You will never be happy until you're able to stand in that piece of that car that is falling apart in pieces and say, you know what, somebody else might have a Mercedes, somebody else has a Range Rover or a Tesla, but I'm happy with what I have because you take me places. Thank God for where you are. Count your blessings, not someone else's blessing. There will always be somebody that has more. God never created you to live your life through somebody else's things. He created you to enjoy your life. Be happy where you are. You might not have all the food that you want. Be happy with a little piece of bread that you're eating right now. If you have peace, you have it all together. Aim for peace and don't let envy control your life. I'm going to repeat that again. Aim for peace and don't let envy control your heart. You will never experience life to the full until you decide to fully embrace the life in front of you. Don't live life looking to the side. Live life looking in front of you. Whenever your mind drifts and your emotions start getting the best of you, when you're tempted to compare, stop and declare and tell envy, you don't have control over me. I'm not going to chase the wind. I'm not going to chase the wind. I'm not going to live for others. I'm not going to consume myself, kill myself, trying to compete with my neighbor. I am going to live the life that God gave me. I'm going to enjoy the family that God gave me. I'm going to enjoy what I have. I'm going to enjoy my bank account, even when it's red, when it's negative. I'm going to enjoy the moment, and I'm not going to be unhappy because somebody else is happy. I'm going to live my life because that's the one that God gave me. And I guarantee you that things will start to change. Besides, if you are a follower of Christ, you already have somebody that you need to let him control you. And Christ himself, which is your Lord, and is supposed to be the one that leads and rule over your life, he gave us already instructions. And he said, don't compare yourself to one another. He said, instead of saying that, he said, love one another. Envy usually always gets in the way of love. You can't love people if you start envying them. So if you want to love people, you cannot let envy take the best of you. Loving one another is not a nice thing to do. It's a must do. It's something that we better do. It's mission critical. Jesus said, people will know that you are my disciples, that you are my follower, if you love one another, if you celebrate one another, if you cheer one another, if you care for one another. And this one another, he didn't say to envy one another. He said to love one another. That's where peace and purpose in life are found, when we love people like Christ has loved us. And I ask you the question, is it possible that envy has taken control of your life or your finances? Is it possible that things that you're doing, you're not doing it for you, but you're doing it to try to achieve, be an overachiever, just trying to impress somebody else? Is it possible that in one of your relationships, envy has become the thing that is controlling you? Maybe in one of the environments where you are at work, you're doing and trying to achieve and do things and do more just because you want to show that you're better than somebody else, that you have it better, that you have more than somebody else. Is it possible that there's an environment where envy has become your boss and is controlling your life? I'm telling you today, like Solomon says, don't chase the wind. That's meaningless. If you do what's meaningless for too long, your life will become meaningless. If you do what's meaningless for too long, in the end, your life will lack of meaning. Don't chase the wind. Let's follow Jesus. Instead of chasing the wind, let's follow Jesus. Instead of chasing the wind, let's follow Jesus. Write that in the comment. Instead of chasing the wind, I'm going to follow Jesus. Instead of chasing the wind, I'm going to follow Jesus, because that's what it's all about. Unlike envy, envy will make your life horrible. And following Jesus will make your life better. So instead of chasing the wind, let's follow Jesus. And we believe that following Jesus will make your life better, and it will make you better of life. So unlike envy, Jesus will make you better. So I want to invite you to not, so that you don't let envy you don't let envy take control of your heart. Because when emotions control our heart, things get out of control. Let me pray for you before I go. Father, in the name of Jesus, I pray for that person right now that is watching, and those that will be watching. I pray that you give them the courage so they can stand up and declare that they will not chase the wind, that they will live their life, the life that you gave them, that they will see the best in what they have instead of being focused in what somebody else's have, that they will find peace in it, and that they will have contentment with what they have. I prayed in Jesus' name that they can be on control of their emotions instead of letting their emotions control their heart. In your name, in your son's name, I pray. Amen. And I want to tell you, whatever you do, don't miss next Sunday. We're going to be right here at El Camino. And I want to ask you one more thing. Why don't you take a small step today in your journey and your faith that can make all the difference in your life? And if you decide to take one small step, connect with us. It doesn't have to be a huge step. Small step in your faith. Just connect with us. Ask us. Just fill one of the forms. Send us a text. Do something, just an email or through our website. Just connect with us and let us know that you want to take a small step. I know life is difficult and it's hard. And here at El Camino, we want to help. So why don't you just connect with us? And I'll see you next week, right here, for the 5th part of our series